Hello and welcome back to El Podo, the Primera Ref show where we take you down to the third tier of Spanish football every single week. And as I've mentioned for the last few weeks now, this is truly the business end of the season. And as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Liam Bambridge as we take you down into El Podo. How are you doing, Liam?
Yeah, not so bad. We are definitely down to the very, very tail end of the season now, aren't we? And looking through the list of fixtures for this weekend, there's almost not a single game and there's nothing riding on it, is there, at either one end of the table or the other?
Yes, absolutely. And it's strange to get to this point of the season. You know, we speak about a lot, don't we, Liam, how much jeopardy there is in this league in terms of, especially those 10 relegation places across both leagues. And the fact that we're now into the final 4 games of the season and we've only had one confirmed relegation, which I think is quite unusual, to be fair. And it's not one that we're going to be too bothered about, is it?
No, we needed this, didn't we, really? Because we've already learned that Deportivo Fabril, who are, of course, Deportivo La Coruña's filial, are coming up from Segunda Ref. So to balance things out, we have lost Sevilla Atletico. They've got beaten 2-0, I think, this weekend by Algeciras, and that's the end of them. They actually finished 8th last season, Nick. They've only been with us for 2 seasons, although that isn't particularly significant because Primera Ref hasn't been around for that many years. But yeah, they did all right last year, just missed out on the playoffs this year. It's been an absolute disaster for them. And yeah, we're not too sorry to see them go. But yeah, they are the first team to be officially relegated, although there are a few sides who are very, very close to dropping through the relegation trapdoor, aren't there?
Yeah, definitely. It'd be quite unusual. I suppose it's systemic of that everything that's going on at Sevilla right now. That not only could their filial be relegated down to Segunda Federacion, their first team also looked like they could be relegated down to Segunda. So yeah, not a great season if you are a Seville or a Sevilla fan, I should say. We haven't got any new arrivals so far yet, Liam. Obviously, we're into the real business end of the Segunda Federacion season. Only a couple of games to go down there as well. As we know, as you mentioned, we've already had Deportivo Farbil promoted. We have had San Andreu and Real Union confirmed, but nothing this weekend. Just looking a little bit ahead. Group 4 seems to be this absolute league of death for promotions. I think there's something mad like 3 points between the top 5 or something crazy like that. And the other side that's possibly within a chance of promotion next weekend is Real Madrid Honda. It's getting interesting down in Segunda Ref, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Grupo 4 was labelled at the start of the season as one of those groups that looked like, as you say, a group of death, basically. And it has been incredibly tight all season. And I was watching all the games because it's just literally the two weekends to go. And so last weekend was the penultimate weekend. And I was watching as all the games kicked off, as they tend to do in Spain, at the same time in the last 2 weeks of the season, as will be the case eventually when they confirm it with Primera Federacion. And the ebbs and flows in this one were quite unbelievable. Aguilas, I think, were top at half time by 4 points. So they were going up, and then at the end of the 90 minutes, they weren't in pole position anymore. So incredible how quickly those things have changed. And yeah, as you say, Rayo Majadahonda, they've just got to beat Rayo Vallecano B on the last day of the season. They're level on points with Sanse, I think, and they'll be back with us in August. They've been obviously in Primera Ref before, and so we'll see how that one turns out. Talking of somebody who's been with us before, Nick, one of your favourite players is back in a well, not on the pitch yet. I think he was on the bench. I think it was an unused sub on at the weekend, but he's back with Barakaldo, isn't he? And has now signed a contract with them.
Yeah, obviously Barakaldo strengthening their position. I would say it's unusual to sign a player with only 4 games to go or 5 games to go at the time, but anything can happen in Primera Ref, and the playoffs are quite arduous, and Barakaldo still have potentially a playoff campaign to contest. And it's John Cabo who is back. I'm not too sure where he's been. I'm not too sure he's just been without a club since leaving Lugo at the end of last summer. But yeah, it's good to see him back. He was, someone who, when we first started this podcast, we took a great interest in, as he kind of just kept popping up with goals from everywhere. So yeah, him at Barakaldo proves to be quite fun. And obviously he came off the bench this weekend against his former employers, which is just an added little bit of spice as well, isn't it, for the weekend?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I didn't think he'd come on it. He did come on in the end, did he? I must have missed that one late on, but he was certainly on the bench anyway. So he's close enough to the team that he's presumably going to get some minutes before the end of the season. As you say, if Barakaldo's season is extended, and let's not forget in Spain that we're talking about a significant extension to the season if you make it to the playoffs. then I'm sure he will be a handy weapon at the very least from the bench. Some brilliant news came in this afternoon, didn't it? If you're a fan of lower league football in Barcelona.
Yeah, absolutely. And it came through initially from just San Andreu, which made me, really start to question about where the priorities are here or what they managed to pull to get this out of the way. Because as we know, Liam, San Andreu were looking at having to, like Grupo, like Arenas de Getxo, find alternative accommodation in the second half of the season because of this artificial pitch that they have at the Nasi Sala. So when I saw that they'd come up with an agreement for them to remain at home all season, I thought, what's happening here? However, it was a tandem announcement from both San Andreu and Europa. Europa will be allowed to return to New Sardinia next season, whether it is in Primera Federacion or whether it is the Spanish Segunda. Obviously, they still occupy that final playoff place. But yeah, absolutely brilliant for both these clubs. Barcelona City Council have basically put it out to tender as an urgent priority to get grass pitches at both of these clubs. It's brilliant news for both of them because, like I say, we want them playing at home. Candrago hasn't been as bad as many might think, but it's still pretty horrific. And the idea that both of these clubs could be homeless next season was just unthinkable, wasn't it, Liam?
It was. I'm still not quite sure how they're going to fix the issue at Europa because I thought one of the biggest problems was that there was a car park under the pitch, and I thought that was something that couldn't be overcome. But maybe it was more a question of funding than the logistical difficulties laying a grass pitch. Clearly, they're confident they can do it now, and it's great to see the local council getting behind them. A lot of lower level teams in Spain are quite heavily backed by their local councils. They're quite dependent on it, and some people don't agree with that. But yeah, as you say, it's brilliant to have them both looking at playing their home games at their home stadia next season. Of course, if Europa don't go up, as we said last week, we could have a very tasty derby on our hands in one of our other groups.
Yeah, no, we seriously could. And I think we mentioned it last week. Selfishly, we would quite like them both to stay down because I think the idea of two derby games, both at New Sardinia and Nasi Sala, would be absolutely incredible. And I think Liam, we would just have to be there, wouldn't we? There'd be no two ways about it.
We'd have to make it well, and I'm sure of that. Yeah, talking to somebody we have seen in action this season, or I have a couple of times actually, David Cobillas, who's currently at Tarazona, made an announcement in the last 7 days that he's going to retire at the end of the season. There's not many of those have come out recently, so I don't think it's too much of a going above and beyond to mention him. And also, of course, he holds a special place in the hearts because not once but twice he has agreed to be interviewed by me when I've gone to watch Tarazona games, and fair play to him. He's been so hospitable, and it's been brilliant to see the reaction to that particular announcement of his retirement. Literally hundreds of likes and loads of lovely comments. Obviously a bit of a legend down in Castellon from his time down there, overcome a serious injury to come back and play again, but decided now's the time to call it a day, and we wish him the very best of luck with his future plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost verging into the territory of the unofficial fourth host of this podcast, Liam, if I'm being perfectly honest, the amount of times he has appeared on El Pozo since our inception just over a year ago. So, yes, best of luck to him in his retirement. I'm sure he'll still be around football as well, like you say. He is someone who lives and breathes it, isn't he? So, it'd be interesting to see if he ends up with a coaching role or potentially back as a manager in Primera Federacion in the near future. We will wait to find out. There's been some fantastic football this weekend, Liam. Shall we talk about it?
Yeah, lots of tension, as we would expect at this time of the season. Not hundreds of goals, but yeah, some decent games overall, even if not too many goals were scored between the 6 matches we chose. Let's start in Grupo 1. Cacereño 1, Deportivo Guadalajara 1. This just started pretty well in this one. I'm not sure what Gallardo was doing playing at centre forward, but he ran through and Diego Neves made a good save. Interesting to see him back in the team. He's been on the bench for the last few weeks at Cacereño, but brought back for this one and got off to a good start, denying Gallardo. And we had a fairly hopeful FES appeal. David Amigo, your friend and mine, went down the box for Guadalajara. Referee didn't like it. But had a busy first half overall as well. He made a couple of saves later on, kept one out from Nesquez, and then also kept one out from Mickey Munoz. Ahead of this which was kind of looping under the bar, was a really decent header from Munoz, sort of stretching back on himself to try and arc it over the keeper, and last minute fingertips kept it out. And then after all that, it was actually the home side that went ahead, wasn't it, early in the second half?
Yeah, it was. It was Diego Gomez who absolutely smashed one past Zarco from about 20 yards out, wasn't it? Which I think when we've seen both of these sides this season, Liam, now the fact that they both struggle for goals is a reason why they're both in this fight here. So, the fact that we're seeing this at the Presidente Felipe, an absolute thunder bastard, so to speak, it was really good to see. Not too long after that was a good save from Guadalajara to stop it from being 2-0. And then a lovely finish from the substitute, wasn't it, from Ulete to make it 1-1 moments later, which I think is such an important goal for Guadalajara as they cling on in this league, don't they, Lim?
Yeah, I think they really, really couldn't afford to lose this one. I mean, it's not a great result for either team, is it? Let's be honest here. They both stay in the bottom five after this one, and they both needed a win from it. And there were a couple of hopeful FES appeals late on from the home side. They were rightly dismissed. There was a massive moment right at the end for Guilla Pereira, the Guadalajara substitute. He burst from the right-hand side. It was practically the last kick of the game, to be honest, Nick. And he smashed it goalwards, but way over the bar. He had a couple of teammates that probably would have fancied a pass and looked quite irate that he didn't give them one. But yeah, could see why he wanted to go for glory. He's not had many minutes this season, but wrong choice for me. That would have been better for them, of course. But yeah, the fact that they only got a point from this was not great. But as you say, a defeat, I think, psychologically as well as from a point of view of how many points they need to escape, it would have been a massive blow. Second game, Pontevedra 1, Celta Fortuna 1, a derby in Galicia. Really not a lot of distance between these two sides, is there?
No, there really isn't. And like you say, we don't often like to pick Filiala's games, but when there is this kind of jeopardy between the two of them, both in the playoff positions at the moment, both having great seasons and both with an opportunity, I suppose, Liam, to kind of prime themselves into who they're going to be playing, sort of like fighting out for that third spot, really, aren't they? But it was a fantastic start to the game. Compa back up front for the home side, came off the bench last weekend to score against Guadalajara, didn't he? But it was the early chances of the visitors that got me talking. Oscar Marcus couldn't get any power behind his shot, could he? And it was saved comfortably, by Marquez. But it wasn't long until the home side went in front at Pasaron, was there?
No, about half an hour, I think it was, wasn't it, overall? Corner from the left, Mickey Bosch. I do like somebody called Bosch. He needs to be a centre-half, doesn't he? Those of you
Yeah,
who don't speak English as your first language will probably be sitting there being a bit puzzled about that. But Bosch is the sort of thing you associate with somebody who smashes the ball. This was a Bosch kind of header, wasn't it? A really decent header from Mickey Bosch. Well saved, to be fair. But no, Mayado on the follow-up, smashed it home. Interesting one, him. He signed as a free agent a couple of months ago. I think he was last seen at Calahorra or something like that last season. And the reason why he's there probably is because he played for Domingo, the Pontevedra coach at Orense before when Domingo was coach there. So yeah, he's coming on that basis. I think he's Argentinian. Decent finish this, I say his first goal. But I don't know about you, Nick, but I'm not sure about this one. I mean, I don't like to see goals disallowed for offside in Primera F, but this one looks a bit dodgy to me.
Yeah, I think, like you say, just the way it drops to him, would make you think that it would be potentially. But I suppose we can't keep going off these camera angles, can't we? So I think the referee has probably done the right thing to give him the benefit of the doubt, if I'm being perfectly honest. But
yeah, I don't think he's the problem there. I think the problem is here for me is it's Compo's the problem, and I think he's quite clearly offside, and I think he's also standing in basically the line of vision of the keeper as Bosch gets his header in. I just think we had one of these last
weekend, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. The guy, basically had to sort of leap out the way of the shot. I don't get that. They seem happy to give some really sort of marginal offside decisions, but when it comes to sort of interfering with play or blocking the keeper's line of sight, they seem reluctant to give it. This is, for even the camera angle I've seen, he's clearly offside. Compa standing in front of the keeper, he can't not affect the keeper's line of sight. The keeper still makes a good save, but I really think it should have been disallowed. Not that I wanted it to be disallowed, but looking at it, with hindsight, it probably shouldn't have stood. And it didn't matter much to Fortuna overall because they did get level, and this time it was Bosch at the other end who wanted to give it a good Bosch. Couldn't. I think he's a bit unlucky. I mean, watching it again I know we've talked about the passer on pitch before. It seems to be a bit revitalized in recent weeks, but there's a big bubble here as he goes to clear it, and Zamora picks his pocket and sets up Marcos, and this time he gets it absolutely right, and no lack of power. Curls of beauty into the bottom corner. We did mention a minute ago about Guadalajara spurning a chance in the last minute. I think Samoa was guilty of this as well, wasn't he, in the second half for Celta Fortuna?
Yeah, he had another chance to set up a goal early into the second half, didn't he? But he went for the shot instead at a very narrow angle. And fair to say, his teammates weren't impressed, which I think you see a lot of with filials, don't they? I don't know if it's maybe a confidence of youth thing, but they do seem to obviously think that they have got better opportunities to do things a different way. But it's a sigh of relief for Pontevedra, wasn't it? And again, later on, a decent save from Marquez to keep out a long range effort from Angelito meant that it was the share of the spoils between these two clubs, which I suppose, Liam, when they're in the positions that they are, there's probably nothing lost, nothing gained here. Pontevedra is still comfortably in the playoffs. Celta Fortuna comfortably where they want to be. Do you think it'll be the visitors which will be the happier out of the two?
Yeah, of course. I don't think Pontevedra are comfortably in the top five, to be honest. I think they're just in the top five. But when you think about, as we've said before, what their expectations would have been at the start of the season, to be anywhere near the top five, let alone in it, with just 4 games to go, is a tremendous effort. Really, really good. And yeah, I think overall, a draw was about fair, I suppose. We did see a slightly dodgy penalty appeal from Diego Gomez. I've seen him given, but Marcos didn't cover himself in glory in that moment. He did think Gomez had dived. Perhaps Gomez did go down a little bit easily, but he stood over him, yelling at him. Gomez got up and sort of basically brushed against him, and then Marcos hit the deck. Don't like to see that. But yeah, overall, let's not dwell on the negative side too much. It was a decent game. I thought 1-1 was about right. I think obviously Celta Fortuna would almost certainly finish second behind Tenerife. So they don't mind as long as they don't lose games. They'll be absolutely fine with the point. And Pontevedra, unfortunately, the situation they're in, they needed all 3 points. We did notice something Pontevedra later, though, didn't we? Today on social media. Was it today or yesterday on social media? An excellent piece of work from somebody who we have a lot of time for, who's an ardent Pontevedra fan.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you head over to our friend James's Twitter, we've shared it on Instagram and on Twitter as well. He's compiled this fantastic book of photography of his experiences following Pontevedra this season. Now, it's an opportunity, for many Pontevedra fans to, buy a piece of memorabilia from this year where you get a picture of yourself inside this book. It looks great, but also if you're someone like us who really appreciates this level, then this is a very unique piece of memorabilia that we could collect as well, where you just get to follow Pontevedra through this wonderful season they've had. You get to really get a sense of the atmosphere, how it feels. Obviously, Pasadena is a very unique stadium, sort of like with almost a brutalist architecture. So it's a really quite funky project that I didn't know James was doing this. He's made us aware of it today. Liam, I'm definitely going to try and get my order in for one. You can follow the link on his page, and basically he's going to supply to demand by the sound of things. But yeah, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Yeah, looking forward to getting a copy of that myself. Having only been there once, I haven't got quite the same perspective on it that he's got as a regular supporter, both home and away. So yeah, it should be a good addition to my book collection. Ponferradina 1, Tenerife 1 up next. I have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Tenerife, but what about the away support for this one? I know they obviously didn't walk there; they got planes, etc. But even for somebody travelling via aeroplane, it's not an easy place to get to, is it? Ponferrada, and they took a fantastic support. I know that they could have won the league if they'd won this game, but only hypothetically. It wasn't nailed on, was it? So tremendous support from them for this one.
No, yeah, really got to applaud. And to be fair, they have travelled well this season. I suppose, like I said, they've got an airport that you can access, but it's not cheap. We're in a climate where jet fuel's slowly running out of supply, and following your team to the other side of Spain from the Canary Islands is should be applauded. And to be fair, they came close to celebrating quite early on in this one, as they came close to opening the scoring, didn't they, Liam? It was Esquerdo who's obviously got a bit of a taste for goal recently after opening his account last weekend, but his shot went just a little bit wide. But then it was the other way around.
You've got your wrong Esquerdo here. He plays for Ponferradina, Mr. Bell. No, Esquerdo doesn't get many. He tends to score from long range. And yeah, he had a crack here, and actually, yeah, it was Ponferradina who had a chance to go ahead early on, and then they actually did go ahead.
They
Eneko
did.
Undabarena at the near post. I think Anthony Lopez. I think Eneko Undabarena's done this previously, just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, he's got 2 and 3 now. He's not scored all season, so yeah, he's a real danger from set pieces. The centre half, and he's wading with 2 after waiting all season and not being successful. So fair play to him. And at that stage, I thought Ponferradina definitely deserved the lead. And just one chance, I thought, for Tenerife before the break. I'm not sure what Chapella was trying to do with this chance. He made a mess of it. It was a really good ball in from Lopez. He just kind of, I don't know, let it bounce off his shins or something, and it kind of went harmlessly wide. I can confirm, I think this was Tom, we were talking about this. I can confirm this week, Nick, that I was watching Andres Prieto in goal a few weeks ago. I managed to mistake him for his number 2 at the club. It was definitely him. I was drawn into thinking it might actually be his number 2 because Prieto's such a good keeper. He made a right hash of a long effort for me from Fabricio. Chris Montes fired the rebound well over. What did you make of the penalty shout for Tenerife in this game? I thought, I don't know. It does hit Navarro's arm, doesn't it? Quite clearly.
It does, yeah, and I think it's one of those where I'm surprised, especially with the FES in play, that it didn't get given. But we have seen some of these decisions, be taken like this by referees who maybe just seem a bit reluctant to. I don't know. Is it reluctant to give handballs or something, Liam?
Ball travels a long way, doesn't it? I like to see them reluctant to give handballs because I think a lot of the time they give handballs when they shouldn't. It's ridiculous. Some of the handballs we've seen in both Primera and Sabadell in recent weeks. But this ball travels a long way, and I think that's often the case. If you can't get your arm out of the way, then fair enough. It does. I think somebody misses it just in front of him, so perhaps he's not expecting it. But his arm is out, and it hits his arm. For me, it is a penalty. I wasn't devastated; it wasn't given, but I can see why Tenerife fans are pretty irritated. However, having been a bit unlucky there, they got seriously lucky on their equaliser. Yes. Danny Fernando is not a bad effort, but Prieto saves that all day long. Takes a massive deflection of Undabarena and completely wrong for this Prieto. And so, 1-0 with 6 minutes to go, and a bit gutting for Ponferradina, who at that stage were in the top 5 based on the fact they were beating the league leaders, and then they had to settle for a point in the end.
Yeah, they did, and like you say, you would look at the way that the confidence that Ponferradina are playing with at the moment as well. Like I saw that in their celebrations when they took the lead in the first half. Those dual knee slides. I think it was Umfulu that was involved in there as well, which is nice to see him getting into spirit of things after signing so recently. But yeah, I think I'll speak about Sabadell in the next part of it, but when you are top of the league, sometimes to get promotion, luck needs to be on your side, and certainly that point there will do them the world of good going into next weekend, where they can basically wrap up promotion back to the Spanish Segunda. There was also a great stop from Prieto towards the end. Fernando's also nearly scoring a second one as well, and then Lopez picks up this second yellow card for a tackle that didn't really look like a foul to me. It looked like a bit of something or nothing, didn't it, Liam? I don't know what you thought on that.
Yeah, it was a nonsense, absolute nonsense. I'm not sure, as you say, it's even a free kick, and he gets a second yellow for it. Absolutely ridiculous, and of course he'll now be suspended this coming week. So that was a bit of a sour end from a Ponferradina fan perspective. Tenerife disappointing, obviously, with that big travelling support. That last minute save to deny Fernandez. It's not going to turn out to be crucial in the long run, but it would have been nice, I suppose, with so many up there if they won it on the road. But they get a chance to sort it all out, possibly this week, and not guaranteed this week. Obviously, 4 games still to go. I don't think they can wrap it up unless Delta Fortuna mess up. But yeah, they might win it on their own patch. And Ponfe, as I say, they were in the top 5 until they can see that they equalised, and now they've dropped out of it, but still very much in the mix. So Grupo Dos. Talk to me about Europa against Real Murcia. Europa 0, Real Murcia 2.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing I must say, as much as it's great news that we have them going back to New Sardinia in the new season, regardless of what league they're going to be in, I must say they've done really, really well to make Candrago something of a stadium, and tifos are a large part of that. Obviously, we've just had St. George's Day as well, so this tifo of San Jorge was absolutely brilliant to see. But despite the lively start to the game from the home side, they actually found themselves trailing after a quarter of an hour, didn't they? And I don't know what this is. This is a corner from the right-hand side. It's an absolutely brilliant save from Juan Flair, who gets down, really low to his right-hand side. But the way he saves it, kind of like bounces up in a vertical line. And then it's just easy for Ortuno just to stick his head on it from about 3 yards. It's devastating, isn't it? Really, when you are pull off a spectacular save like that from a keeper's perspective, not to see your defenders clear your lines for you. It must have been a bit of a knock the wind out of Liam.
Yeah, totally. I think Flair deserved a little bit of support from his defensive teammates there. Yeah, it's a brilliant save, and it's just Ortuño. He reacts quickest. He might be the nearest to it anyway, but yeah, he reacts quickly to the loose ball, and yeah, he can't miss from there really, nodding it in. And then of course Oscar Gil made it 2-0 not long after that, and yeah, it was weird. I just felt like Morelos were totally in control of this game for a long time. Most of the first half for me, it looked really comfortable at 2-0. And then we had this massive couple of minutes, didn't we? Where first of all we had a red card, and then we had a penalty that wasn't. Start us off with the red card. What do you make of it?
Yeah, a bit of a strange one, this, because I can see, basically Europa go route one, don't they? And it's lofted up into the path of Jody Canio, I think it was, who goes one-on-one with the goalkeeper. And to be fair to Diego Pinero, who is the substitute goalkeeper, but because Gazaniga is injured or suspended, he's got his eye on the ball as it drops, but then he looks down and he sees Canio, basically coming onto him, and I just don't think he's got time to move out of the way. But I suppose the letter of the law, he's the last man, he's the goalkeeper, he's gone for it, he's gone for a 50-50, and he has committed a foul. So he's got to go, which is, a big shame for that, because he was having a really good game as well. Did you think it was malicious, or do you think it's just clumsy goalkeeping?
It doesn't need to be malicious. That's the problem. I just felt it was a bit of a nothing one. He's come a long way with his goal. I know he has made contact. So the ball's running out towards the touchline as well. It's not like he's running straight through the middle, Cano, and he gets taken out. I thought they looked at it a lot, didn't they? They checked it on the FPS a lot. I think they were trying to decide if there was really enough contact to justify the red card. Eventually decided it was. And then on came Manuel Garcia, who's, I think he's been playing for Real Murcia Imperial. They beat him, hasn't he, in Tercera Federacion? So big moment for him. I think he was at Intercity last season, but didn't actually play for them. So yeah, I mean, fair play to him, and he did really well when he came on, I thought, didn't he? One of the other things I quite found amusing about this at one stage was looking across the touchline and seeing Adai Benitez eating an apple. I don't think I've ever seen it. It's the first time I've ever seen. And some of the commentary was saying, yeah, well, it's that time of day, it's not quite lunchtime. It was about, I suppose, 1:15 in the afternoon. So yeah, he was waiting for his lunch and he was hungry. So yeah, grabbed an apple and had a good munch on that. It's quite unusual, isn't it? I think. But yeah, overall, he'll have been a bit gutted. I think he did get a big decision in his favour on that one. But then he also got a penalty a couple of minutes afterwards awarded to his side. And I think, again, not again, I'm not sure about the first decision, but the second big decision, it definitely hits Pedro Benito on in his face, I think, and then diverts onto his arm, and that's not a penalty, is it? So the referee got that right after a check. But I think overall, Adai Benitez will feel like he should have got one of the FS checks for possible penalties in his favour. I just thought overall, they weren't great overall Europe, and I'm a bit worried about them, to be honest. I feel like they had a fantastic season, but they feel like, to me, like they're just losing their impetus at the wrong time of the season and clinging on to that fifth place, aren't they, right now?
Yeah, they really are, and like you say, I think sometimes it comes down to the luck, and you've got to remember, this is a side who come up from Segunda Federacion. They haven't necessarily strengthened with the professional long term players that some other clubs have that are up there, and they've kept the core of the squad they got promoted with last season. So, I think this was to be expected. It's just unfortunate that they are so close, but now they are very much in the sights of Cartagena and Algeciras, aren't they, for that final spot? As I think the other ones are really starting to, basically be allocated now, aren't they, between the two B teams, Sabadell and Eldense. So, yeah, hopefully they can cling on. But it wouldn't be a surprise, like you say, Liam, to see them drop out at the very last minute. And obviously for Real Murcia as well, this puts a 5-point gap between them and the bottom five. That's breathing space for them, probably eases them a little bit. Obviously not the position they wanted to be in at the beginning of the season, but I think at this range, they'll now take it. And yeah, a bit more of a confident performance as well that we've been sort of expecting a bit more from them this season, haven't we?
Yeah, definite improvement. They've been a bit sort of under Curro Torres. They've been a bit. They had 3 good results on the road, and then they were really disappointing for a couple of weeks, and now back to a decent performance. I thought this was overall. Yeah, they deserved the win. They really nullified all off a large period of this game. So and another clean sheet, which I'm sure Curro Torres will be happy about. Talking of clean sheets, both sides kept a clean sheet in the next game, but that result really didn't do either side any favour. It was a relegation 6-point between Tarazona and Juventud de Torremolinos, and it ended 0-0.
Yeah, it really did. It was just a case of neither side had sort of packed their shooting boots for this one. You know, both of them had chances, plenty of them, but just kept spurning their opportunities, which, you know, when you're down there in a relegation dogfight, that's not necessarily what you want to happen. You know, for me, Gallego looked like he was most likely to, you know, break the deadlock at 0-0, but essentially every single shot he had either whistled, you know, just over the bar or quite comfortably into the hands of Martinez from distance. I think, you know, we've mentioned a few times we judge a game sometimes on the length of its highlights. This wasn't a very, very long one at all. There wasn't much to shout about or talk about, which both sides will be very disappointed in, won't they, Liam? Because for one of them, this was a big opportunity to stake a claim into the league for next season, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Tarazona just ahead of Juventud Torremolinos, and you know, as things turned out, they both ended the weekend outside the bottom 5. But yeah, I feel like it was a waste of chance. I don't know. I'm not sure about not packing the shooting beats. I just think that they both didn't want to lose the game. I didn't think either team really pushed to win the game. I like Gallego in the 10 for Juventud Torremolinos. I also like Cristian Aguero. I thought he was the most likely to do anything for Tarazona, but he got a really silly booking and a completely ridiculous decision. He was just basically standing over somebody trying to stop him from getting stood on his teammate basically by another player, and I don't know how he was judged to be the aggressor in the whole situation. And then he was in a yellow card, and things weren't quite dropping for him. But I think Aguero's got a bit of class. You know, he's one of those, even if he's not having his best afternoon, I keep him on the pitch. But he took him off after an hour, Juan Barrero, and I felt after that they really didn't offer anything at all going forward. Tarazona, Juventud Torremolinos tried to sit back and hit on the break. Yeah, it was a disappointing 90 minutes overall, and I get that both sides were, you know, nervous about it, but I just feel like one of them should have really gone and tried to win it, and they didn't really. And as a consequence, they're both really, really close to, you know, to that jeopardy of dropping out of the league.
Yeah, I think we're now at a point as well now where we look at Grupo Dos. You know, Ibiza probably have just done enough to put enough distance between themselves and a relegation spot. I think they're on 44 points now. So I think we're generally looking at maybe one of 3 teams joining the rest being relegated this season. In theory, you know, don't get me wrong, Marbella and Betis Deportivo, etc., can still technically survive, but it looks like a long shot. And this is where we get into that unique thing about Spanish football, isn't it? About this mini league. Now there is a point between Nastic de Tarragona and Torremolinos and Tarazona. However, when the heads-to-heads come into play, I think it's Torremolinos that come out on top of that in a minute because they've got the head-to-head against Tarazona. They've got an equal head-to-head with Nastic de Tarragona, both teams winning 2-1 respectively. So it goes down to goal difference, of which at this moment in time, Torremolinos have. And then as things stand, Nastic have the head-to-head over Tarazona. However, they both play each other in 2 weeks' time. So that game could be massive in deciding, when we come down to the finer margins, if these teams finish on equal points, which is a real possibility, at the minute it would be Tarazona who suffer unless they can beat Nastic de Tarragona by 2 goals. At which point it would then be Nastic who then would finish at the bottom of this sort of mini league if they all finish on the same points. It really is fine margins that we're dealing with at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And it's probably not best to talk about it with 4 games to go, but the way things are panning out, you never know, do you? There doesn't seem to be much between them. None of them are in the best of form at the moment. Obviously, Juventud Torremolinos still haven't won under their new coach. Tarazona picking up a point here and there. You must see that Tarragona had a good result a couple of weekends ago against Real Murcia, but then have been poor since then. So yeah, it could well go down to that. And as you say, this mini league situation, the stakes might yet change again, but right now it's too tight to call. Marbella nil, Sabadell 1.
Yes, one where our very own Tom Morgan Charters was in attendance this weekend, getting some much needed sunshine on the Costa del Sol. And, I think the good thing about this one is that Sabadell came into this game knowing that they could reclaim top spot, couldn't they? Knowing that Eldense had surprisingly not won an eighth game in the row the day before. However, they couldn't have got off to a worse a start, could they? With after 5 minutes, the are we calling him the Kaiser? I feel like, should we call him El Kaiser? It's a great name, but the Kaiser got himself sent off after just 5 minutes, basically leaving the away side with a full 90 minutes to compete with just 10 men. And I feel like at that point, it was very similar to the Tarazona Torremolinos game where neither side wanted to lose, and Sabadell basically were looking to play onto the break and were playing quite nervy, weren't they?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? They knew the situation. Sabadell. It's a question of how much they want to win this league, isn't it? Really, they're a pretty good bet right now for making the playoffs, you would think, but they also know that they're right in the mix as well for actually going up as champions. And so, but yeah, you don't want to lose the game either. And playing against 10 and knowing that Marbella are desperate for the win, the one thing, of course, Sabadell have always got in their favour is an absolutely outstanding keeper. Diego Fuoli made another brilliant save at a key time. He's not obviously called into action all that much. He's had 21 clean sheets this season, which is quite outstanding, isn't it? He has a very good defence in front of him, but he's one of those keepers, isn't he, who will come up again and again with the big save. He doesn't make 15 saves a game, but a couple of times most games he makes one save. You just think, my God, how did he keep that one out? And this
Incredible.
game was it?
Rumors have him in Real Zaragoza colours next season, Liam. Are you excited about the prospect?
Well, totally, yeah. I'll be going for Sabadell, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. Apart from the fact that, as I said last week, he comes from Zaragoza, so if he feels that pull, then maybe he will go for it. But yeah, I mean, he's a tremendous keeper for them. I'd probably ideally like to see him play for Sabadell in Segunda, if I'm honest, and they really enhanced the chances of making that happen automatically, didn't they? Alan Godoy, he's not had a particularly happy time when they signed him. I think it was it in the January transfer window that they signed him?
Yeah.
He's not had a good time anyway. It might have been his first goal for them since joining. Certainly, if he's got one or two others, he hasn't got many. He was in the right place at the back post in the very last minute of the game, more or less. I think the ball hit the bar twice. He was only about 3 yards out and he still nearly missed it. But he went in. Who cares? It's one of those games, as you said earlier on, with Tenerife picking up points, but perhaps they didn't necessarily deserve it. You get those little breaks, don't you? They were very resolute. And then when the one chance came along at the end, they just about squeezed it in and go top again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hammer blow to Marbella's survival hopes, isn't it? But like you say, it's these marginal gains, this rub of the green, this luck of the Irish, whatever you want to call it, that sometimes decides, whether a team gets promoted or not. And this could be, a huge result where they were walking away with 1 point, they've come back with 3, and could be the difference between themselves and Eldense or Atletico Madrileño come the end of the season as well. And like I said, when you've got Fuoli at the back and plenty of options going forward as well, it is going to be really interesting to see whether Sabadell can do that double bounce through to the Spanish Segunda as well, and see where they end up come next season. And from Fuoli's perspective, as long as he can keep his hands to himself, he'll definitely have a great place in Zaragoza next year. I think your current goalkeeper, Liam, probably didn't cover himself in glory in the derby yesterday, did he? But less about that said, the better.
Indeed, yeah. I don't think. I think Zaragoza will certainly be looking for a replacement next season. Let's just put it that way. Let's go for a quick roundup of what's happening at the top of the bottom. Grupo Uno, though we've mentioned quite a few of these teams already. Obviously, as we mentioned in the roundup, both Tenerife and Celta Fortuna drew. So that means I think the league leaders will probably be crowned champions if they beat Barakaldo in the Eleodoro on Friday night. It was kind of all about remontadas in the top of Grupo Uno. We had Zamora coming back from 2-1 down, from 1-0 down, to beat Orense 2-1 in El Couto. We had Real Madrid Castilla coming back from 1-0 down to beat Talavera 2-1, and so they both stay in the top 5. And perhaps significantly, Zamora have now got a 4-point gap over sixth place. So which is 4 games to go. That's a decent buffer to have for them. And Pontevedra, as we mentioned, they've just stayed in the top 5, despite the fact they dropped a couple of points, because Ponferradina, of course, drew Tenerife, and Unionistas also drew with Bilbao Athletic. So yeah, it's as you were at the top of Grupo Uno, more or less. And we may, as we say, have the champions of that decided this coming weekend. What about the bottom?
Yes, down at the bottom, just one team in the bottom six were victorious this weekend, and that was Osuna Promesas, surprisingly. However, not surprising when they beat Arenteiro 1-0, which basically pushes them to the brink of Segunda Federacion, which is a real shame because we've really enjoyed Arenteiro at this level, haven't we? But they just haven't been great this season at all. So again, that could be confirmed next weekend. Three teams of Catareno, Guadalajara and Talavera are still within a win of taking over Orense, escaping that drop zone potentially, and Osuna Promesas are now within 5 points with 4 games to go, so still much to play for the filial as well. However, it now looks like 4 of the 5 are going down after Real Aviles Industrial moves 6 points clearly of the bottom 5 with a 2-2 draw away at Racing Club de Ferrol. An excellent
Yeah, they'll be a big
result.
gassy, won't they? Because I think it was like, Racing Ferrol equalised about 90th minute. You take another 2 points, you got eight points clear. You're pretty much safe on your stage, but still 6 points looks like a decent buffer, doesn't it? Of course, remember Osasuna Promesas saved themselves right at the death last. I mean, literally on the last day of the season and practically the last minute, didn't they? So are they gearing up for another miraculous last day escape? We certainly hope not, but it might happen. Grupo Dos, as we said just a moment ago, Sabadell go 2 points clear at the top after that dramatic late winner in the Banús Football Centre. Eldense lost. That's why Sabadell have gone top. They lost 2-1 away at Antequera, who are now making a late charge for the playoffs. That's the way it is in Grupo Dos. You could suddenly be staring at relegation and just above the drop zone, and then a couple of wins, and all of a sudden you're still not really in anywhere but mid-table. But I think Antequera have 6 points off the top 5, so you never know. Late run. Atletico Madrileño are a point behind Eldense in third place. They beat Betis Deportivo 3-1. Villarreal B are fourth, despite being held to a goalless draw by Bifa, and Europa, as we said, are clinging on to that last playoff place despite defeat against Real Murcia. Still in fifth, but they've got Cartagena and Algeciras breathing down their necks. At the bottom, as we already said, we've lost Sevilla Atletico, and a couple more look likely to go this weekend, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. Marbella, obviously, we mentioned, lost in the 91st minute, just clinging on in there. Whereas Atletico Thañequeño, I think it's literally just a matter of a point. If they can't get a win next weekend, that means they are down if results don't go their way as well. But we've kind of seen that coming for a long time, haven't we? Betis Deportivo, despite losing this weekend, are just about alive. They still have 5 points adrift of safety, but with 4 games to go, it's not impossible, and they have improved massively this side of the season. And as you mentioned, Liam, this time last year, we were discounting some of the teams thinking they were going to get relegated, and they went on to survive on the very last day of the season. However, it does look like it's one of the 3 we mentioned earlier. It'd be Nastic, Juventud de Torremolinos, or Tarazona most likely to fill the last place in the relegation spots in Grupo Dos.
3 games in Grupo Uno this week that I think you probably should watch if you can. Tenerife and Barakaldo, Friday, 7 p.m. As we said, it could be the game that means that Tenerife are crowned as champions. But let's not forget that Barakaldo are still very much in the playoff picture. They're not actually in the top 5, but they're just outside it, and they will definitely not go there looking for a draw. I think they'll go there trying to win the game. Tenerife have not been massively impressive in recent weeks, so I'm sure that they'll at least look to win that game, Barakaldo, rather than just shut up shop and take a goalless draw. Real Aviles Industrial Guadalajara, must-win game for the visitors. Saturday, 6:30 p.m. And as we've said, Real Aviles Industrial are very close to being safe. If they won this one, I'm absolutely sure that they would definitely be playing Primera Federacion football next season. So they'll see us a great chance. But they will also be happy with the draw. And of course, let's not forget they had that amazing game against Guadalajara, which they won, I think 4-3 earlier in the season. So they've got the goal average. So if they don't lose this one, even if Guadalajara do somehow catch them up, they will need to overtake them, because Real Aviles Industrial with a draw in this game would win the goal average. And finally, looking at the other end of the table, back to the other end of the table, Zamora against Ponferradina, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Obviously a massive game for both sides. Zamora at the moment sitting pretty in the playoff positions, and Ponfe at the moment just outside them. So yeah, a win here for Zamora not only bolsters their position in terms of top 5, but it also gives them a really decent gap over Ponfe, who are a team who are going to be in and around, I think, for the rest of the season. How about Grupo Dos, Nick?
Yes, absolutely. Another Friday night game for us. Alcorcón against Europa. Very much last chance saloon for the home side, isn't it? If they've got any ambition of making those players, they've got to get a result here as their slim hopes of top 5 finish begin to fade. Looking towards a real great game, who definitely be wanting to see whether Europa will slip up. It's Algeciras against Cartagena on Friday night as well. The fact that both of these sides will definitely want to win, but even if they get a draw apiece and Alcacon do them a favour, it's very much a positive from their perspective. And then looking down towards Sunday at dinner time, Villarreal B against Hercules, again similar to Alcacon. Last chance to lose for Beto Company's men. They had a great result against Teruel at home this weekend. If they can get a result here, then they could just about make a last chance charge with 4 games to go, couldn't they, Liam?
Well, yeah, because of the fact that all these teams above them are playing each other, aren't they? You see, and I think they're not going to catch Villarreal B. I think they're 8 points behind them, but they're 6 points behind Europa, and some of those teams above them have got to drop points. And I think you're right. If Algeciras and Cartagena draw and Alcorcon win, that means they're still in with a shout. And of course, as you say, whatever happens here, I think all 5 of these 6 teams are still in with a chance of the playoffs at differing levels, and things might be a little bit clearer after these 3 games at the weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Like I say, it's getting really exciting now. We're finally getting to see who's going to be making the playoffs, who's going to be winning the league, and who's going to be relegated out of Primera Federacion. It is getting to, as you mentioned at the top of the show, the very business end of the season. So make sure you stick with us here on El Pozo, released every Tuesday on the Spanish Segunda Patreon, on the El Pozo podcast feed, and on YouTube as well. You can also go follow us on social media if you want to keep up to date with all the latest news, clips, highlights, and thoughts, and even some fantastic interviews that Liam is doing. Mr. Exclusive at the minute, Liam, as we're going to be calling you soon. You've got that fantastic interview with Antonio Paz, the sporting director of Unionistas, out at the moment. So definitely go give that a listen about a really fascinating fan-owned club, which is doing really well in Primera Federacion this season as well. So definitely worth a listen there. Liam, I'll say thank you for joining me once again on this evening to talk all things El Pozo.
Yep, absolute pleasure as always, Nick.
And gracias to you guys at home as well. Thank you for your support. Stick with us as we edge towards the end of the season, and we'll make sure to bring you a preview of all the playoff happenings as we get into the final games of the season. But for now, we'll catch you then. Hasta luego.